So I was describing to someone earlier, I'm a radical interloper. So I work at the geography department. I'm sort of like I now identify as an urban geographer, but I did not train in urban geography. I trained in urban studies and architecture and planning. So I'm really glad for this sort of like discussion and meeting, and I think all of you are well fed and woken up again, and probably you have a glass of wine or something in your hands, and good for you. So it's gonna be so I'll try to make it like 20-25 minutes. And then I thought we could go and walk, not walk outside there, but like here. Maybe we could go outside, step outside, look at the moon, try to understand light as a phenomena. Um, so I'm the author of this book. And I just want to mention it briefly because I think Johanna talked about it earlier today. She presented a chapter from the book. So it's called Researching Otherwise. It's open access as well. So just like this sort of like seminar, in this book, we also try to reimagine what is the legacy or what's the use of these embodied creative imaginative methods of researching today, no? Like, so how do we use that to understand our multi-species, decolonial, all these sort of like pluriversal worlds that we inhabit today? So there's like some interesting chapters. You can have a look at it. I just wanted to mention because it's sort of like symposium on Anna Maria and Lucius Burckhardt. Last year, I was in Kassel doing a seminar with the students using the book. And we went to the archives of Lucius and Anna Marie Burkhardt, and we took some fragments from the archive and reenacted them in the city. So this is one of the students who took one chapter from the book and took stuff from the Burkhardt archives and started to work on the meadows in front of the main square in Kassel. So I just wanted to say about the book, and now I'm not going to speak any more about the book. It's about my current research, and I'm really excited because I'm almost finishing the first part of my research, which is so I'm currently working on um, a project that is on light. It's focused on Switzerland, and I'm really trying to focus on Zurich. Um, and we're currently in a moment where there's the concerns over light pollution are intensifying, and light is being seen from, like, there was no consciousness about light as a disruptor. So now it's being understood that it's an endocrine disruptor, that it actually, just like other pollutants, it causes all kinds of diseases even in us. So it's been linked recently to Alzheimer's disease. But in as I'll show you, with insects and animals and trees, it's much more harmful. So, for instance, we see sometimes in until December the trees haven't left their leaves, and that's many of the times is because of sky glow and because of all kinds of other endocrine disruptions. So what I'm trying to understand, and I think where Lucius Burckhardt was das ist Schweiz, ja, das ist Zürich, Prime Tower. Um, so what I'm trying to understand is, and I think that's where Lucius Burckhardt's writing was very interesting and important for me, is trying to understand how even in the way, this sort of like crisis of light pollution is being solved. It's not really solving this thing, but rather producing a new type of night. And I'm interested in using Lucius Burckhardt's methods, trying to understand the production of the night. So that night is not a natural space, but rather it's produced. So just to give you some context, in the last 25 years, the light emissions in Switzerland have doubled. So it's a very phenomena of the neoliberal economy. We are putting up towers like Pram Tower everywhere. We are lighting up infrastructures, and I'll talk more about it later in the lecture. So light was never a central theme in Burckhardt's work, but it was a recurring curiosity. So he wrote a bit about light, and his most important work on the topic of light was Die Nacht ist menschgemacht, the night is man-made, and it was published in the 1989 book Zweilicht, Die Ökologie der künstlichen Helligkeit, by Klaus Stanek, which was also a film. It's a very beautiful film. One of the first films that deals with the topic of light pollution and light as an endocrine disruption. So emerging in this sort of like 1980s when the neoliberal capitalism was extending across the planet, light was becoming very used as a term. And there were writers like Murray Melvin who was describing the night as a frontier of colonization, that, the neoliberal economy is extending not in space anymore, but in time. So it's colonizing the night. And Lucius Burckhardt was reading those texts in English, so Murray Melvin's, and then also in French of other authors, and was sort of like trying to talk about the invisible design in the night. Which is determined by rules: when lights are turned off, when lights are turned on, what kinds of lights are used, what kind of spectrums, when do bars close, whether public transport runs and how frequently it runs. So, according to him, the night then is a construct. It's comprised of opening hours, closing times, timetables, price scales, habits, street lamps, and in the sense that night is as much a product of design as is darkness. So as we so he said, he wrote, as we are approaching the reality of the 24/7 city, why women face crime at night in certain areas and why do slums and some neighborhoods become no-go areas in the night is a question that we should, think about in this sort of like, invisible design of the night. So he suggests, in that writing that he did, that the night, just like the hospital, is in urgent need for a redesign. So why is, like, night is so uneven, no? So his nocturnal strolls with the students in Kassel, conducted as part of his urban criticism seminars, revealed how excessive illumination often serves little purpose. Facades are lit up as bright as day, he found, and they do not reduce pedestrian insecurity. On the contrary, they create glare and distraction. Moreover, street light is relative, he argued. And so he was like kind of, trying to understand and compare and see how in the neoliberal economy outshining or this competitive light was becoming a thing, and how perhaps by understanding illumination as a relative relational phenomena, we could design otherwise and experience the night otherwise. So as I said earlier, he was trying to propose the night as a more than natural phenomena, that it's not just about, like, the sun going down, but we actively produce the night. And he was like he was reading these two books that he was quoting again and again when he was talking about the night. So this perspective inspired our own research. So what I've been doing is I've been using a very sort of like very subjective methodology for my research, but then hyper objective methods. So you will see this tension also in my research all the time when I present it. So this is a light measuring device that I take with me. So I always carry this bag. I do almost a walk every night. I have this red lamp because red light allows you to see things, but it doesn't disturb the sensitivity of your eyes. So I carry this fanny bag with some instruments, and we track the interviews. So we actually produce GIS maps because I work at a geography department. That's our bread and butter. So we have to produce maps. I have been walking with all kinds of experts who work in the night with and are like working with the nighttime. So this includes planners, light planners, architects, designers, but also people from SBB, from AVITZ, AKZ, so all the electric companies, but also people who address light complaints. So, anyone says, "Oh, these lights are too bright," or I can't see this. It doesn't allow me to sleep. So I've been walking with those people. I've been walking with people who head organizations that work with people with visual disabilities and to understand their perspective in the night, but also with women's groups who work on insecurity, with criminologists, with astrophysicists, with you can think about anyone, with racialized minorities, dark sky Switzerland. So last night I was walking, so I arrived only this morning. So I walk almost every night. So that also is very interesting because it gives you a very different rhythm of the day. I would highly. So as I was saying, like, hyper objective and like hyper subjective, so like we track these interviews, we also have spatial transcripts, like, so, the what was said where, what measurements we made, it all comes together in this GIS maps. Not that I use it, but like, okay, we have to produce them. But this is, yeah, these are the things that I carry usually in my fanny bag. So it's also, because I mean, how Burkhardt was arguing that, the night is shaped by an invisible design. It's actually true. You need it's extra sensory, right? Like, so it's beyond the human sensorium. So you need also sensory apparatus to be able to sense or like, decipher the invisible design of the night. So these devices, for instance, yesterday I was walking. We were on a street where the lamps looked like they were gas lamps, and I took the device and I measured it, and it was inside was an LED lamp. So there's also like a sensory governmentality of the night, right? Like, so we see all kinds of like very anarchin anachronistic things in the nightscape, but they are actually hiding a lot of things. And the aesthetic of the night is very interesting because the same high mast lighting, so this is the original, what was supposed to be built before the Eiffel Tower, which was supposed to light up all of Paris. So the idea was that, it would be a high mast lamp for the whole of Paris. Luckily, it was never constructed. It became an aesthetic device, but it was constructed in certain geographies which needed to be surveilled. So, for instance, there's very beautiful work by Stephanie Byers on Cape Town, and she found how lighting was used as an apartheid tool. So, like, all the white neighborhoods had very cozy lighting, which was at 3 meters height, and then all the neighborhoods for colored communities and for black communities were surveilled with these 30-meter high, mast lighting, which creates high contrast, and it makes it like you're living in a prison, right? Like, it's very, very, very hard. So lighting is very political. It's we discount it. We're like, oh, we are interested in housing rights, land rights. Light, oh, come on, it's a very niche topic. It's actually very political. I mean, that's what I found. So I can highly recommend doing more walks in the night and going out and seeing your neighborhood and what happens there. But what we found also is that I mean, it's also very interesting for me as a southern geographer, southern researcher coming from a southern geography, studying a place like Zurich, doing it in German, because people are like stumped, like, it's like, why is this guy from India with this funny mustache? Like, why is he doing this research here? Like, he's non-white. Like, why is he doing this research? Like, go study somewhere in the south. So, but then, that creates a very interesting, like, also background to the research. But what I was always told before starting the research is everything happens by the rule book in Switzerland, right? So, uh, using my understanding of informality and southern urbanism, southern theory, southern thinking, I try to turn that around. Not assuming that a priori, but trying to see if there's like, gray areas, gray zones in places like Switzerland and Zurich where everything is supposed to happen by the rule book. And actually what I found is nothing happens by the rule book. Everything is very negotiated. Everything is very democratic. So I'll give you one. So I'll present you some short vignettes from my research instead of like, talking about like big ideas. Um, so this is a walk that I did with Stefan Inaischen in the neighborhood very close to Zurich, Balgrist. There's a church there that has a hotspot of Italian fireflies. So Stefan Inaischen writes about urban ecology, has written several books on Zurich's urban ecology. And he's very interested in fireflies, and he works on identifying hotspots for fireflies and trying to see what happens. So, like around 10 years ago, he discovered that there was a firefly in Zurich Balgrist of Italian fireflies. And he would see people were very fascinated by seeing these fireflies. But then it was very sad as well because all these fireflies were lighting up, but they could not find partners because there were so many competing light sources in the neighborhood. So he started to walk around and started to negotiate with people in the neighborhood to turn the lights to have a protective covering on the lights, to turn them down a little bit. He started to walk with the electric company of Zurich. He found like people on the street, like, doing maintenance work. He's like, can you turn them down 50%? Don't turn them off completely, but 50%. And and he also convinced the church itself to completely shut down the lighting. So when we visited them and when we did the walk, there was no lighting at all, and we could see each other's faces. And that was also because Zurich has so much sky glow. So even if you have no lights on, you'll see a lot because there's a lot of like Strahlung that comes from the sky at us. Um, this is another one. It's a person called, it's a light planner called Roland Bodenmann, and he insisted that we go to this Belvedere in Baden, and he wanted to show us not only Baden's light, but he showed us how I don't know if you see it. That's Zurich. So that's our sky glow. So you see it from 25 kilometers away. Um, so there were very interesting sort of like interactions like this. This was in a sort of like discussion with a astrophysicist who does astrophotography with his students. And in the walk with him, we walked quite a lot. So we walked almost 10 kilometers during that walk, and we finished midnight almost. And what he showed us was that more than Zurich was bright, the Limat Valley was brighter. So as you go outside the city, contrary to your assumption, it was starting to get brighter. So you had the Rangierbahnhof in Dietikon, for instance, which is like a marshalling yard, which is lit like the day. And there's all kinds of like logistical facilities that are lit just for the purpose of surveillance. And all these sort of like advertisements, big IKEA slogans and all of that. So what he was trying to show is that how, as an astrophysicist, is actually very difficult to find dark spots, but they use like the valleys as a shade. So they go in the next valley, and then you have the face of the mountain, and then you can use it as a dark face to observe. But what he was trying to tell us is that in the Mittelland especially, like all these valleys do create a lot of like sky glow. And it's most of the times unnecessary. It's very it's because this is the Ranger Bahnhof, for instance. It's really I mean, when I was there, so they have 60 tracks, and then they do servicing on the trains. I was there for 45 minutes and I saw two people. So and they have I think around 11,000 light points only on this tracks. So when I don't know if you have seen it, when you enter Zurich 10 minutes before you just wake up by yourself. This is the charisma of Rangier Bahnhof in Dietikon. But then also during our walks, for instance, with Stephanie Bryers, who's a South African, very, very talented South African light planner based in Zurich, we also found how, there's also like a sensorium to light. So, as soon as you enter a backyard or like, there are these lights that are there to blind you and to make you feel uncomfortable. And we were walking around Langstrasse and we mapped so many of these lights that just go on like that. And then it's very, very, it's 5,000 Kelvin almost, very blue. If you look at that light, it's very difficult to sleep afterwards. It's really designed to torture and to say, well, that's a no-go area. Please don't walk there, right? So there's a lot of informality when it comes to lighting, but also a lot of ontological difference. So here, for instance, we were walking with a light planner called Sofia Berdelis, who was involved in the first Plan Lumiere, which is the light master plan of Zurich. And what they did as urban designers, planners, is that they were like, okay, we'll design the Sechseleute plots in a way that only the facades are lit up. And then you can wayfind using the facades. And you don't need everything to be lit up. So they had a very volumetric idea of lighting. And then the EVZ came, that is in charge for lighting the streets, and they put the poles in any case. And they were like, why are you putting it? Like, it's not in the concept. It's like, no, we need all the surfaces to be lit up in the city. We don't care about your volumes. Like, it's so there's also a lot of ontological difference between how engineers work in the city and the planners. And there's a lot of friction there. So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that, walking as an ethnographic practice as well, to understand frictions and to understand, like informalities and how things happen. But also, now I'm really excited to walk with Pipiloti Rist, and I'm super fascinated. We are walking with her probably next month. The person who works with her confirmed that we can walk with her, so I'm super excited about it. But she designed this. She took the idea. She said that, well, in all cities across the world, we have this regular lampposts that are every 10 meters. They're very straight, and they look all alike. What if we, destabilize the idea of the light pole itself? And she designed, I don't know if you've seen it. It's very beautiful. It's on the Helmplatz. It's between the old and the new extension of the Kunsthaus. And she wanted to design a feminist light pole. And of course, like, it's not just feminist in the sense that it's curvy, but it's actually it's non static. So you have she wanted the lights to dance around and to provide other ways of wayfinding and play in the city. So I mean, of course, and it's part of the Plan Lumiere. It's of course an artistic project, but I think it allows us also to visualize possibilities that are there. Like that we need not think of light as like a point in the plan, right? So but there's also, this was very interesting. So we were with the people who you call when you want to complain about light, Ukit said. So they took us to this newly constructed bridge, Negrelli Steig, I think it's called Negrelli Steig. And there, the idea was that you would have a very, very light lighting where you get like indirect light on your face. And so they were very proud. They designed it, they launched it, and then the police came and they said, "Well, this is a no-go because you need to be able to directly see the face because it's a long bridge." And the police then renegotiated the lighting of this bridge. And now the lenses, the optics of the light have been changed a little bit so that the thing comes to the face, right? Like, so it's very negotiated, like, contrary to what one might think. But also, this is the same walk with the people from Ukit said, and they're showing, we were walking around along Europa Alley, and they showed how everyone tries to violate light, right? Like, so there's thousands of light violations, especially this Google building, where they said, for these facade lights, for the colored lights, you need to have a Bewilligung, but they don't have a Bewilligung because Google argued that these are internal lights. So they put the lights not on the facade, but they created a balcony between the light installation and the facade, and it looks like it's coming from the facade, but it's coming from 1 meter behind it. So then you don't need a Bewilligung. So I mean, imagine like so they were like, what should we do? Like it's a Leviathan, right? Um, and I mean, this is what I was telling you earlier, that people just cover it up, like so. It's really creating a lot of problem at the back, but then someone from the front covered the light up. Just so there's a lot of informality in how lighting happens. This is a very interesting plan by a light planner that was very proud of intelligent lighting. So there's now like this swarm lighting, in certain small towns around Zurich, like Wetzikon. And what happens there is like the lights only go on when you're moving around. So on paper, it's creating very less light pollution. But it's what we found is these are 5G connected. All the lights are 5G connected with each other. So they're just pushing the pollution from the visible spectrum into the invisible spectrum because they're communicating all the time. So this is a map of the light points are in orange, and then the communication that's constantly happening between the so like it's also like a very sensory. I think someone was talking about sensorium this morning, and I want to talk to that person later. It's a very sort of like sensory. It's a matter of sensory governance, right? Like so how what is visible, what is invisible, what is made invisible. So our thing of walking is also about that. Also on a walk with someone from Dark Sky, Switzerland, they were like, "Oh yeah, when we have red lights, we can just solve everything. We don't get harmed by red light. Animals and insects do not, and there's no sky glow as well. So if you put red lights all over the city, it's going to be fine." And then as we were talking about it, we passed through like the red light district. There's a new one in Zurich, and he was like, well, it's so culturally connotated, so nobody would let us put red lights anywhere. So it's also like, very culturally constructed. What is a red light district? What is, so like people, sometimes look at me as like, yeah, in Asia, it's white, right? Like you guys use like colder lights, you use white lights, but we Europeans use like yellow light. And I think that those ideas are also sort of like sometimes culturally constructed. Um, but I think there's also, a synanthropism. There's also like species that follow us. So like, for instance, spiders, they build always nets along lights, and they use it as an assemblage to really like, vacuum clean insects in their environment. And just to understand, like I didn't know this, but like lights. I mean, I'm still split. I'm not saying light pollution good, lights bad, but just to say, I went on some excursions. For instance, this one where we were close to Balgris somewhere, which was a very dark part of Zurich. And they just put one light there, and there were 800 moths that came to this one light. And if we had kept that light on the whole night, all the moths would have died. So it's also like, sometimes it's invisible to us, like, this sort of like we're not conscious about what lights do, and we put them all on our balconies that look so cute and they're so innocuous, right? Like what can a small light do there? But they actually are a big attraction because insects and animals use like natural light for wayfinding. That's why you see a lot of dead migratory birds close to Prime Tower as well, because they think it's a landscape feature. They try to go into it, and they just strike a glass and they die. So, but then it's also very politicized. I recently came across this poster, for instance, about like, this stretch in Langstrasse, and it's, the FDP saying, well, the red-green politics is really, harming our sense of security, like, what about the women? What about this? So we've been trying to walk with everyone, literally, like we didn't leave anyone behind. So, like we really want to understand, is it like, what makes the city unsafe, right? So, um and there's also like kind of, maybe I should stop there. uh so there's also kind of, these uh unintended darkness corridors in the city. So we find all kinds of like beavers and uh sort of like fauna take refuge in these spots. Uh, we use red lamp, as I was saying. I just want to close by saying that it's inconclusive. My study is inconclusive because I'm still doing interviews. I haven't worked with everyone. I've done 30 out of 40. I want to do 50. But so maybe I hope to see you somewhere else, and then we can keep continuing to talk about this. On that note, I wanted to suggest that we do a short 5-minute excursion outside. So just like we could walk outside, we could, it's like almost full moon. And we could see how can we use this lecture also to understand the nighttime, perhaps. So we could do a short 5-minute workshop if anyone's interested.
I was it refers to what you showed this publication, like the making of the night, or the night, like, and I thought it felt like, okay, the night is kind of constructed or influenced, but how do you think about the day?
The day is also consumed. I mean,
No, it's I was just it was so focused on the night, and how you think, if you see it in a whole, no?
yeah.
And what is the day? Because it was a lot about political theory and the neoliberal system, and this also includes the day, not just the night.
Yeah. No, there was a thanks, and for that question. That's really good. Because there's a new book that came out like 4 years back, I think, that argued against the night frontier of Melbourne from 1980s. He said, well, the day is also constructed, and the way we understand day and night is very constructed. So he was arguing against this distinction a little bit. I mean, what I think Burkhardt and many others were arguing at that time was that the night as a time of economy was becoming much more exploited by the economy at that time. No, so they were they were consultants from the UK that were coming up with this idea that we need to have so-called nighttime economies. That where there were industries, for instance, Zurich West, you can fill them with bars, and you can have a lot of lighting there, and then people will come out, people will consume, and then we will develop new real estate there. We will also develop a lot of we will take away a lot of capital because people are coming and consuming and drinking beers and like being out and going to parties and all of that. So I think when they were researching about the phenomena of the nighttime economy was becoming a thing, right? And right now, what's interesting is rewilding the night is becoming a thing. So people in Zurich want to rewild the night. They want to have darkness corridors. They are thinking of lebendig Nacht, yeah, and like Grunstadt Zurich wants to do things around the night, and like all other kinds of people. So the questions are very different, right? So perhaps there's need for another conceptualization. So I mean, Lucius Burckhardt's text and Melvin's text was just an entry point, right? To understand how did we get here. But definitely there's a new book to be written, no? To to understand, okay, no, but there's something else that's happening. That's a good question. Yeah, thanks.
We're planning right now a building where we discuss a lot with the light planner where to put the lamp in order that you can put your key in the night and so on. And it's a Laubengang typology. So somehow, as soon as the light goes on in the Laubengang, you somehow doubling the light on the street in a way. And but we never discuss about the pollution, like out of the scale of the building. So in that sense, a Laubengang, which we always think it's a nice topology, it's like you bring the corridor outside and then the all light, no? So somehow it's a bit wrong to do this, no?
And that comes up a lot in our interviews. That's a lot coming up in our interviews. Also, like people are commenting on Ersatzneubau in the city where, previously you had very small windows and they would not send so much light outside. And now you have like, this big glass windows with like so much lighting and so much light goes outside. So Laubengang also, but also like, the um the sort of like the redevelopment that's happening in the city is also very creating a lot of light emissions.
But I mean, somehow there are laws about pollution, light pollution, that you should not.
They don't.
But they don't tell you to not use light.
They don't govern interior spaces, so you cannot. You don't have any rules about you. You have rules about light coming from outside inside, but not from inside outside. And now the night is almost reversed, no? Like so you have much more like there was a study in the US, they found that 60% of the light in the city is actually from private sources. It's not from, and we are just trying to solve the public lighting, which is only less than half of the lighting. So, but I think these sort of like ideas around Laubengang and all of that is very interesting to also address. Maybe we close here because we had only 5 minutes and I think we've done 5 minutes. Yeah. Sure.
What do you think? I'm sensing that light pollution is one of the kind of problems you would like to, the ethical kind of problems of light pollution you would like to solve with your wonderful project. But I sense that there is also like another perhaps agenda. I wanted to ask the question: what's the ideal outcome of what you are searching for or searching for?
I think I didn't present it today, but that's very interesting. Thanks for the question. I think we try not to use light pollution at all in so in none of the questions we ask, we use the term light pollution. If people use it, we allow it to use it because I mean I'm coming from critical theory and what before I started the research, I was looking at the archives. And in the archives, what I found is there was a term called Lichtwirtschaft that was used a lot in the 1940s. And the whole idea of light is very based on economy. So, like, I don't know if you know about I hope I don't get killed for this, but about there was a cartel that was born in Geneva where GE, General Electric, Osram, all the big companies came together and they said, well, let's reduce the amount of life of lights so that people consume them more. So behind all of this narratives of light pollution and all of that is a very big economic interest that want you to change lights every few years and invent new problems. So I think there's what the friction you're identifying is between, the phenomenological part of it and then the structural issue behind it, which is political economy of light. And I think that's why I don't use the term. And I think my project is the political economy of light. And phenomenology is, of course, and I think that is again a contribution of Lucius Burckhardt, is a way to, kind of understand political economy as something that is constructed and is lived as well, right? So that is, I think, the project.